All right, let's jump right into a topic that is absolutely central to the Christian faith, the power of the blood of Christ. Now, that's a phrase you've probably heard a bunch, but what does it really mean? Well, today we're going to unpack it layer by layer, looking at all its different functions.
So, let's start with the big question. In this whole belief system, what is the spiritual significance of Christ's blood? Is it just, one symbolic idea, or is there something much deeper going on? That's what we're here to figure out. And here's the answer the scriptures seem to give. It's this single, incredibly important sacrifice that actually works in a bunch of different ways. You can almost think of it like a master key, One key, but it unlocks a whole series of different doors. So let's go ahead and see what's behind that first door. First up, we're diving into what's called the legal solution. This way of thinking frames humanity's biggest problem not as just a bad feeling, but as a sort of cosmic legal trouble, like being on the wrong side of the law with a massive debt that has to be paid.
So, if the problem is a legal debt, then the solution has to be legal too, right? It has to be something like a divine acquittal, a way to completely clear the books. The real question is, how in the world is that supposed to happen? Let's break it down.
And this is where it gets really specific. This legal fix isn't just one thing. It actually has three parts. First, there's a purchasing power. Think of it like literally buying someone's freedom. Then you have a justifying power. Just imagine a judge's gavel hitting the bench and declaring someone not guilty. And finally, there's a remitting power. Now this is huge. It's not just paying the debt, it's completely wiping it out, like it never even existed in the first place.
Now, I'm sure you've heard the word redemption before. This verse connects it directly to the blood. But here's a key detail. It isn't just another word for purchasing. There's actually a really crucial difference between the two. Yeah, this really spells it out. Purchasing is the transaction. It's the one-time payment. But redemption, that's the result. It's a permanent, total change of status. It's the difference between just getting bailed out of jail for a night versus getting a full pardon. Your record is totally wiped clean, and you walk out forever free.
Okay, so the legal problem is taken care of. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. According to this framework, getting that legal status fixed is what makes the next step possible, solving the relational problem. We're talking about that deep separation between people and God.
The issue here is described as enmity, which is basically a state of hostility, of being at odds with God. So a legal paper alone isn't going to fix that. The solution has to be personal. It has to build a bridge, create real peace, and give you direct access where a huge barrier used to be.
And once again, this happens in three distinct ways. First, a propitiatory power. I know that's a big theological word, but just think of it as an offering that completely satisfies and makes things right. Then there's a reconciling power, which is what actively turns that hostility into a peaceful relationship, kind of like two warring nations finally signing a peace treaty. And finally, an accessing power. This doesn't just make peace. It throws the door wide open, giving you bold, direct entry into God's presence.
Okay, so we have a new legal standing and we have a new relationship. That's fantastic. But what does any of that actually change on a Monday morning? That's what this final section is all about, the practical, day-to-day solution that helps a person move from struggle to victory.
And let's be real, the problem here is something we all understand, that constant internal struggle with our own faults and with what the source calls spiritual opposition. So the solution can't be some external fix. It has to be an internal source of power, something that lets you live a totally new kind of life from the inside out.
This practical power also comes in three parts. You've got a sanctifying power, which basically means being set apart for a unique, holy purpose. Then there's a cleansing power, and this is so important. It's not described as a one-time wash, but as a continuous, ongoing purification. And finally, you have an overcoming power, which gives you the actual strength to win those spiritual battles.
So when you just kind of step back and look at all 9 of these functions, the legal, the relational, and the practical, you start to see the whole picture. They're not just separate ideas. They're all interconnected pieces of one foundational power designed for a complete and total transformation.
So, if you're going to boil all this down, the most crucial takeaway is this. Every single one of those 9 powers works toward these 3 core transformations. You get a brand new legal standing, you go from guilty to acquitted, you get a brand new relationship, you go from being an enemy to being a child, and you get a brand new way of living, shifting from being defeated to being victorious. And all of this brings us to one last really powerful thought. According to this whole framework, These massive shifts in our legal status, our relationships, our daily lives, they all flow from one single historic event. It kind of leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? What does it truly mean for a faith to hinge so completely on the multifaceted power of just one sacrifice? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me today.